Hello, I'm Hingers, and welcome to Good Game Well Played. I guarantee you the only show on the ABC dedicated to esports. I know, right? It's very hard to believe. I was away sick last week, terribly, deathly ill with horrible death, terrible flu, and that was lucky because nothing really happened. Except for this. The finals of the European World Championship Starcraft Season 3 happened in Krakow, Poland, and for the first time in forever, the final was played between two foreigners, which is how everyone in the Starcraft community refers to non-Koreans. Is it racist? Probably. Who knows? Anyway, the best of 7 final saw Lilbo, the French Protoss, widely considered to be the best foreigner going into the tournament, up against Polish Protoss Mana, who is a local and therefore was the local favourite. Game 1 took place on Cactus Valley. Now in StarCraft, at this kind of high-level competitive play, maps will generally have subtle advantages depending on what the racial matchup in the game is. By which I mean the in-game races, not like if it's a European guy versus an Asian guy or something. Anyway, in this instance, because both finalists play as Protoss, there were no racial advantages to be had in terms of the map pool. In StarCraft generally, you go into each match with a plan, a well-rehearsed build order. A build order is like the order in which you build buildings and units. It's pretty self-explanatory. Then, as you work out what your opponent is doing, you have to change and adapt your own build order to try and counter what they're doing. The first game was pretty vanilla in that respect. Both players went for a pretty standard Blink Stalker build. The Blink Stalker can teleport a small distance, usually in and out of combat, which means they are great in fights because you can micro them around by moving damaged ones to the back so they don't die, and your army can stay alive longer. But if both players are going for basically identical Blink Stalker builds, what it comes down to then is who is better at microing their stalkers around the map, in and out of fights. That meant that the game was just incredibly close. Lilbo, who's blue, starts off being quite aggressive, and Mana is forced to use a Nexus cannon to defend before he finally gets out an Immortal which chases away the stalkers. Lilbo then backs away before trying again a few minutes later. After Mana repels 2 attacks, he's ahead in both tech and army supply, as he started to pump out Immortals and Lilbo is still making Blink Stalkers.
Looks like Mana should be able to hold. Mana just barely hanging on.
But Mana overextends and is then caught out of position by Lilbo's army, and basically the first game is so close until that moment.
Mana, he's taking out so many stalkers, Lilbo could be in a lot of trouble here.
Lilbo has a positional advantage for one fight in which he's able to kill off enough of Mana's force close enough to Mana's base, which he can then start attacking, and Mana just taps out.
GG! Lilbo takes game number 1.
In the second game, which was on Terraformer, Lilbo opened with a Stargate, which makes flying units, whereas Mana went for Blink Stalkers again. Lilbo was able to take out one of Mana's sentry units early on in the game, which gave him an early lead, before Mana was then able to get a quick Blink Stalker counterattack in.
The stalkers right now have Mana zipping around, and they will now blink out of the base after having assassinated the Immortal.
Then, Lilbo did kind of an unconventional play, which halted Mana's attack. He used his Nexus Cannon to snipe Mana's Observer, which was the unit that was allowing Mana's Blink Stalkers to get up into Lilbo's base to harass and attack.
Oh! Whoa! Really unexpected series of events here.
Mana then slowed the counterattack by using some collapsible rocks to block Lilbo's path to Mana's base.
Destroying those rocks to cut off that army from getting across there, that's going to buy Mana a few more seconds, and a few more seconds is exactly what Mana needs.
Once Lilbo has what he thinks is a stronger army, he moves out to pressure Mana, but again the game is tilted by positioning. Mana is able to use this opportunity to harass Lilbo's base, which forces him to recall.
Oh my God! The recall! A great move by Mana, forcing Lilbo to come home.
The next time Lilbo tries to move out, Mana is able to blink into his base. Lilbo is then able to take out Mana's second Nexus before Mana uses his probes, which are just working units, to trap Lilbo's army trying to escape.
Oh! The probe drill to capture all of the Immortals! A brilliant and beautiful move that we never see!
Lilbo fends off Mana's first counterattack with some great positioning. The resulting counterattack is too much, and Mana takes the second game to level out the series 1-1.
GG! Mana wins! Fantastic!
The next map in the map pool was Iron Fortress, and the game was pretty quick. Mana went for really early Dark Templars, which are cloaked units that can only be spotted by observers, but Lilbo went for Blink Stalkers, which meant he was likely to get an early observer anyway, so he'd be able to blink into his opponent's base. This meant when Lilbo spotted the Dark Templars, he lured them into his base so he could get out an observer, and then used a sentry to block their escape, killing them before they got any real damage done. This put Mana way behind. At this point in the game, he's invested in some very expensive tech that is now unusable and has lost 2 really expensive units. So Lilbo was then basically just able to walk across the map and kill Mana.
GG!
The players took to Coda for Game 4 of the series, which was the most interesting. Lilbo took an early lead with some effective Oracle harassment. Mana then dominated the air unit count, which kept Lilbo in his base and didn't allow him to put counter pressure back on Mana. The game then settled into both players staying in their bases and building up armies into the mid-game before Lilbo moved out, and Mana used that opportunity to try and harass with his Phoenixes. But Lilbo had placed High Templars at his natural expansion to defend.
Beautiful feedbacks there by the High Templars. He literally set him up.
About 18 minutes into the game, Mana tried to engage at what would have been Lilbo's 4th base, confident with his Colossus army poking into Mana's well-placed concave. However, Lilbo sent Zealots to prevent Mana expanding, and this forced Mana to press forward. With both plays in each other's bases, it was a race to see who could destroy their opponent's buildings the quickest. Lilbo then warped in a bunch of Dark Templars as a last resort, hoping that Mana did not have detection with his army, but the gamble did not pay off, as they were immediately killed off by Mana's army.
And it looks like the Dark Templars, most of them taken out. By the way, guys,
following the base trade, Mana tried to start again with a new Nexus, which would have reset the game, but rather than engaging with the army directly, Lilbo forced his army through and sniped the base to win the very tight game. This match was really the peak of the series, with the two Europeans trading games back and forth before Lilbo finally took the series 4-2 in the 6th game. Accepting his trophy and holding back tears, Lilbo is the first foreigner to win a WCS Premier League Grand Final, and the only European to qualify for BlizzCon later this year. The French Protoss's chances at BlizzCon aren't great. He will go in as a low seed, and it is entirely likely that the tournament will be dominated by world-class Koreans. But that doesn't take away from the fact that this win at WCS was a huge achievement, and this series was a great example of different types of PvP games. That is it for this week's show. Congratulations to Lilbo on his massive win, and we'll see you next week. Be sure to check out Pocket today as Nick Boy travels back to ye olde England and takes on the various social niceties of Downton Abbey, the video game.
Good day and welcome to Downton Abbey. I'm the Earl of Grantham's butler, Mr. Carson. Are you the agent Mr. Murray sent? Yes. You have not arrived a moment too soon. Thank you, sir.
For now, though, good game well played, and Hingers out. See ya!